Well, it is that time again. Time for another amazing McWayne's class production. Um, Today, I'm going to show you a map about national recovery and growth from the time period 1865 to 1876. Often, this time period is referred to as Reconstruction. While I am showing you this map, I will be asking you to answer the following questions. And I'll go ahead and read them to you now, but you'll have them in front of you as you go. What act encouraged people to move west? And explain the act. What industry helped speed up the western migration of the population? How did Congress help this industry expand? Which group of people opposed the expansion of the United States population? This opposition led to a number of different battles and different hostilities. What was the name of possibly the most famous battle? And name the battle sites that occurred between the expanding people from the United States and this other group of people. Explain how Texas and cities like St. Louis and Chicago were linked during this time period. What animal was almost driven to extinction during this time period? Where did the oil industry start? What state? And what minerals were found in most of the Rocky Mountain states? It is my hope that by answering these questions, we will be moving toward understanding a couple of the standards for middle school social studies. History 2A, determine and explain the historical context of key people and events from the origins of the American Revolution through Reconstruction, including the examination of different perspectives. And also Geography 2C, which says that students should be able to interpret from a geographic perspective the expansion of the United States by addressing issues of land, security, and sovereignty. You won't have all the information to fully answer these standards, but the information I'm giving you does relate specifically to these two standards. So, I must also state at this time that I copied this map, and on the next slide I will show you that I have properly cited this map. The post. Well, before we get into me lecturing about this map, I guess, let's go over it. I imagine it's going to be kind of difficult to see and to read. Please notice to the southeast, states like Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, through Florida. Those states are in this kind of orangish color. And the other states I want you to pay attention to are the purplish grayish states. Those were states as of 1876. The lighter pink areas, kind of through the middle area of the map, those were only territories, so those were not states yet. Again, the southeastern states, those were southern states that were in the Reconstruction project after the Civil War. Other things to note on this map are some of the small dotted lines. These are principal cattle trails. There are some other lines in here, kind of a dash type line that shows some railroads. So the cattle industry and railroads will be mentioned in here. So the post-Civil War period was a time of growth and expansion in the United States. There were needs that had to be met. new railroads that had to be built, and there were homes that had to be found in the West for an expanding population. The Homestead Act of 1862 offered free land to those people who would move west and occupy and improve a homestead. This was meant to draw some of the population from the east into the newer states and the newer territories of the west. The building of railroads really is closely related to this western migration. The people were so eager to have railroads that Congress actually offered land grants to railroad companies to help them make it easier to spread west. These land grants unquestionably sped up the construction of thousands of miles of track. The first transcontinental railroad was actually a joint effort by the Union and the Central Pacific Railroads, and they met near Ogden, Utah in 1869. It's a little bit of trivia that maybe you should remember. Ogden, Utah, 1869. That's where the first transcontinental railroad really came about. There was another factor, something else that came up with this western migration of people from the United States. The Native Americans really were in opposition because as this population from the United States was moving west, well, they were being forced off their land. The government forced them onto reservations. Garrisons of soldiers were stationed at various posts to really keep the Native Americans on their assigned reservations. Well, this brought about conflict, it brought about hostilities, and even battles. The most famous of these battles is probably Custer's defeat in eastern Montana in 1876. There were some smaller, well, I guess lesser known, not smaller, but in Colorado there were battles at Beecher Island and Sand Creek. Wounded Knee is a famous battle in South Dakota, and Fetterman's Massacre in Wyoming. There were a couple of industries that emerged during this time period. One of the best known industries right after the Civil War was range cattle. Large herds of cattle were driven northward from southern Texas, and they got fat as they ate the spring grass as they moved north. In western Kansas and Nebraska, many cattle were loaded onto trains and then sent to slaughterhouses in cities like St. Louis and Chicago. So the country was actually becoming united. Texas was linked directly to St. Louis and Chicago. It's also during this time period that buffalo were slaughtered by the thousands. Their hides sent to tanneries. Their bones were actually used in making fertilizer. In actually a couple of decades, they were pushed to the brink of extinction. The sheep industry really emerged. Sheep really did well on the thinner, the scant grasses in the western states. In addition to animal products, there are two other industries that really emerge: oil and mining. The oil industry started in northwestern Pennsylvania in 1859, and then it soon spread to neighboring areas. But the oil industry really doesn't take off for a long time. But 1859 in northwestern Pennsylvania. And then gold, silver, copper, and lead were found in most of the Rocky Mountain states. So, as I said, I did not create this map. I copied it. I copied it from Edgar Wesley. It is in a book called Our United States History in Maps. Right now, I would like you to spend some time trying to answer the questions that we provided at the beginning. And again, you should have some information that should help you explain the historical context of key people and events. And we should start being able to interpret um, the expansion of the United States through a geographic perspective. Once again, there is another amazing McWayne's Class production. His Macadociousness Incorporated.